Christopher Merkel with Ultrasound-Services. I am one of the co-founders of Ultrasound-Services and also the CEO of Franchising Us. And today we're introducing our podcast, Ultrasound Unplugged.
Yeah, and I'm Destiny. I'm the business manager here, and today is actually going to be our first episode of Franchise Fridays. I'll be the guest host today, actually, and I'll be asking you questions about when we first started, how it was for you guys in the beginning, and how franchising even became a part of who we are. Okay. So, do you want to get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
Okay, so my first question, take us all the way back to the very beginning. How was it for you whenever you even wanted to start opening something up? What was your vision? How was everything like?
I would say it wasn't a vision at first. It was more of a problem solution.
Okay.
Shannon, the other co-owner, clinical director, was talking to me one day about the problems she was having and the lack of service that was happening in our area. And so I made the recommendation to let's start something ourselves because I knew she could do it better and I could help her to do it better. And so from there, we started, working on the concept, working on the brand, working on getting the company established. It was pretty chaotic at first, but it was fun, exciting.
And what was it like when you finally opened your first location? What did your first year look like?
First year was probably slow.
Oh, yeah.
I would say getting doctors' offices and facilities outside of our establishment to send us business was pretty slow because you had to jump in and change the mindset of providers within your communities to start sending business.
Yeah, to start sending someone small instead of like
it was slow, but we started gaining reviews fairly quickly, and it started to pick up, and so it was steady but slow.
Okay. And so at what point did you go from you're just running a clinic to thinking that, I could actually franchise this and turn it into something way bigger?
That was about 4 or 5 years later.
And you've been open
12 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't really quickly that we thought about that. It took some time. You had to get a lot more of the communities involved, get a lot more business in the door, proof of concept. When you start talking about franchising, it's not as easy to do as one might think, simply because there's a lot of moving parts to operations. There's a lot of moving parts in other states. And so you really had to hone in the process, make sure you had people, and make sure you could generate revenue as well in order to conceptualize a franchise. So it's not just about throwing up another location and then another location and another location. You actually have to have a process in place to do that. So
and I know that you actually did you studied franchising or something during your MBA, right?
Yes. For our MBA, I had a thesis, and it was based on franchising our company. And so I took that concept and ran with it after the fact. And so we are here now doing franchises based on that thesis, based on the premise that it could be scalable, profitable, and so far it's worked out really well. We are currently speaking to applicants that have applied. We haven't yet opened our first one, but we're excited.
Yeah. We're all excited, I would think. But so, for me, as a person who sees a lot of the back-end work daily, I can see probably just how much work you were doing in the past and still are doing, and how much importance we put on protecting our brand, protecting our customer service, and just really trying to be better constantly. So what were some mistakes that you think you made in the beginning, or how did you learn throughout all these years?
Early on, the mistakes that we made, a few of them, and I'm happy to share that as well. We tried to go mobile at first, and being mobile doesn't really give you an identity. We learned quickly. Providers, patients, insurance companies, contractors, they want to know where you're at. And if they can't physically find you and they can't tie down a review to you, it's a little more difficult to scale. And so That was one of the first challenges that we saw really quickly.
And it was only mobile? Like you didn't have any physical locations at the time?
Well, we still had a physical location,
Oh.
but at first we were telling people that we just were going to do mobile. And so probably for the first 3 months we were trying to do mobile. And then after that we realized, after getting pushback from providers, discussing contracts with them, we knew that we could see the writing on the wall, that you had to have a facility so they could like legitimize where you were and who you were. And so again, it's about branding, it's about legitimizing what you do, how well you do it. And then once we did get the location, we knew that we had to ask more questions and dig deeper, dig into customer service. Why we actually started it was because of customer service. And so we felt like we could do better. The only way to find out if you're doing better is to ask customers directly and patients directly when they walk in your doors. And so as they would leave early on, I would ask them 2 questions. Could you find us? How were our services? Those 2 questions led us to change locations, and it also led us to manage and watch our prices more closely, because we're directly competing with bigger places like Methodist, Memorial Hermann, Kelsey-Seybold. And so we had to kind of walk that fine line. Customer service, having really good customer service helped us early on. And so.
Yeah, and I know, we take insurances, which is different from a lot of the other ultrasound places around here. And so I know you used to talk a lot about how that was a giant learning curve for you guys, and you really figured that out on your own, which is really impressive, actually.
Yeah, over the years, to that point, over the years, we've had several insurances that have come and gone, i.e. we've terminated their contracts because they're difficult to deal with, or they want you to revalidate and renew. And so it becomes time consuming, taxing to bring on those types of payers simply because you don't have the time to deal with the lack of availability that they give to be able to contract with them.
And sometimes there's just lack of clarity from what I've seen in my own experiences.
I think over the years, that's one of the hardest lessons that we've had to deal with is, dealing with Medicaid, dealing with some of the insurances that come and go. They're not as transparent as we are with our pricing, and they're not as easy to work with. And so from a customer service perspective, you just want to help the patients, and you don't want to have to
put that burden on.
And so
everyone.
you learn to adapt, and so that's what we've done. We've adapted, we've altered our pricing to be able to accommodate those that may not have insurance. And so it's put us in a good position to be able to grow, and that's what's worked. Constantly asking patients, what do you need? How can we help?
And we're still doing that even to this day. I mean, we constantly, watch our feedback from patients, from what they say when they're in the exam room with our techs, and even when they say to reception or our reviews, we're constantly trying to be better, which I think is important. But on the note of being better, I know you've done a lot of research on different franchises that have come through, different clinics, different companies that have gone or still are existing. And so what would you say that you've just seen or know about that makes a franchise successul?
You're correct. I've seen a lot of franchises. I've done a lot of research on franchises over the years. I think about 4 or 5 years ago, we started doing research to see, what a franchise concept looks like, what it's out there, are they successful? And so out of that research, from what I've seen, we are the first to offer franchising with ultrasound that is starting out with diagnostic as the primary, and then elective as the secondary. From a concept, most people are afraid to attack and go toward the direction of diagnostic because they don't know how to do it. They don't understand the concept. They don't understand how to put the concept together. The premise behind adding insurances, the premise behind making sure that you run your facility appropriately. It's a little difficult to do, and so there's not been any franchise concepts that do that. And so it made it easy for us to really transition and create something that allows sonographers to be who they are, do what they can do, and show society that we are can be brought to the forefront. We're not just doing baby scans, and that's what I think. That's a lot of the times what people will say to me is, "Do you just scan babies?" And albeit we do, it is not truly who we are. We are diagnostic, we are elective, but first and foremost, we are medically necessary. And so I think that concept needed to be pushed out there to the forefront. It's past time for that to happen. And so this is that offering. This is that franchise concept that is now out there and available, especially in the state of Texas. We'll start moving into other states pretty soon.
You made ultrasound services the way it is because you wanted to bring something different. You wanted to do something that nobody else was doing, because you didn't just want to like stay with the crowd. You wanted to go off, even if it was risky or scary to go off on your own. That's something that you longed for, which I think is interesting. You
know, from conception, we interviewed 6 companies. Out of those 6 companies, only one of those were diagnostic, and it was not a franchise. And so you could see quickly, if you wanted to differentiate yourself, you had to do something different.
Take the risk and do it.
And it is a risk, and it is more difficult to get a provider to change their opinion, especially when they've had years of sending exams to other facilities. To get them to see value in who you are and what you do and your differentiation, it really sets you apart. And that is evident by how long we've been open, the types of patients that we see, the types of clients that we see. Our service offering is not normal per se. If you look up ultrasound across the U.S., you're going to see a lot of ultrasound places that just do 3D, 4D. And that's what I did not want to do and be. And so I figured, let's go ahead and take the harder route. See if we can scale it. And so far we've been successful. We've currently got 5 locations. Hopefully by the end of the year we have another 5. Hopefully across the U.S. we open 20 to 30, maybe even more. It'll take time, but we'll get there.
And I know, like, now also stepping into my role as a business manager, I've seen a lot of the hands-on work that I have to do, and I know, I mean, you taught me everything that I know, so you were doing everything before hands-on, and now you've really stepped more into a leadership position when it comes to ultrasound services. And how would you say your leadership style has changed, or what is important to you when it comes to leading?
Well, it has changed a lot. I look back when we first started, I was doing everything. We've got people hired here now to do all of those roles. And there was only one role out of all of those roles that I was not doing, and that's what Shannon, our other co-owner, does, is ultrasound. And so, I think about how difficult it was and how long it's been over those years to do all of those roles. It's a lot. The good thing about doing all of those roles is bringing somebody in to do those roles. You are objective in how you train people. You are objective in how you treat people. You are very understanding because you've had those roles. From a managerial perspective, you want to lead with example. You want to be stern in your own humility, because if you're not, you can be overly aggressive for reasons that are so unnecessary. And so in my mind, I want to be a compassionate leader. I want to be somebody that understands, that listens. Leading is not easy, but somebody has to do it. So you're kind of, you have to figure out your own way and figure out your own style. And so I hope that those things get taught to those people that are now doing those jobs that I used to do. And so
I mean, for me, something that I've always appreciated about you and Shannon is that, you're not afraid to give constructive criticism. I mean, that's something you have to do. But I think you guys really give a lot of opportunity to learn. I mean, I stepped into this position and you guys were open to answering all my questions, and not only answering my questions, but really teaching me about business in general and teaching me about leading people and about customer service and about it's just I actually really appreciate that about working here, because I feel like a lot of bosses just kind of throw you in and they're not necessarily. I know you talk a lot about really having a care for the employees and seeing them grow. It's not just like, oh, it's just their job for you. You want to see them grow and succeed. And so you guys are open to teaching all of us, which I think is really important when it comes to owners.
I'm fortunate to have, as I said, done everybody's job.
Yeah.
Literally, not just metaphorically. I live those jobs. I've done those jobs. And so I get that they're sometimes difficult. I look at this from a concept of when we bring on franchisees, they're going to be stepping into roles that are not going to be easy as well. And so as I scale with y'all, employees, it helps me to make sure that as a leader, I'm working with new leaders, new owners in that same manner. And so it goes without saying that it's responsible. It's I guess a character that you want to have and you want to make sure you are sticking to. Those folks that are around you want to grow. If they want to grow, your company's going to grow. It's self-sustaining, if you will. And that's kind of the whole premise behind a franchise, and especially the medically necessary part of it. When you look about sustainability, you think about, okay, is this going to keep growing? Is it going to be here in 20 years?
Yeah.
Can we duplicate it? Can we rapidly scale this? And so those questions are questions that constantly weigh on my mind. And so if you're not doing the things and taking the necessary steps to make sure that happens, then you could find yourself obviously closing your doors, and nobody wants to close doors, especially when you're trying to open. So speaking of kind of feeling stuck, if there's anybody, this is going to be one of my last questions, if there's anyone that you think is listening to our podcast or maybe looking into our franchise, maybe they're feeling a little bit stuck in their position, what would you say could help clarify for them if franchising is something that could open doors for them? What would you franchising is in and of itself daunting. And so this system is meant to and is built for that whole issue of it being daunting to kind of be subdued or almost taken away, because the guesswork is gone. You're looking and you've got now 5 locations that are operating. You know exactly how they operate, from start to finish. And so that was the biggest concern for me thinking about the concept of how do you help somebody get past that daunting, okay, what do we do here, how do we do this? And so you want a system that takes, is transparent, that takes away the guesswork, that kind of puts you in a leadership role quickly so you can start making a profit, so you can start running your location as efficiently as we do. And so you'll pick that up fairly quickly based on, we've got operations manuals, we've got staff that can train, we've got people like yourself that are in positions to educate, make sure that those franchise owners are coming into a system that will help them to grow rapidly rather than like we had to kind of stumble through it from the beginning. And so
you've kind of taken out the guesswork and people can still make mistakes, but they have someone to bounce off of.
Exactly.
So
I think that's the warm and fuzzy about franchising.
Yeah.
Knowing that there are examples already out there. There are leaders that are already here that can help you get through and answer those questions that you may be, possibly otherwise consumed with. Not opening too many locations at once, not going mobile when you probably need a facility already, not scaling that facility to a 2-story building as opposed to a 1-story building. I had a conversation with a potential franchisee 2 days ago, and he was concerned about how do you bill.
Oh, really?
I take the guesswork out of how to bill because I know how to bill, and I taught you how to bill, and our other co-owner knows how to bill, and it's just we're taking the guesswork out of it. And so hopefully that will enable new franchisees to be able to buy into, if you will, and come on board with something they can get behind and believe in, A lot of them will probably be sonographers. They will avoid all the traps and pitfalls that usually you run into when you're trying to start a new ultrasound company.
Yeah. Well, I think this concludes our podcast for the day. Thank you for answering my questions.
Well, thank you for being a great host.
And for everyone listening, this is our Franchise Friday episode. We'll have episodes every 2 weeks, most likely. It'll be about different topics. But if you're interested, or whether you're leading a team, maybe interested in franchising, or maybe wondering what could be next for you, we do have a website. It's ultrasound-services.com, and there's a franchising page on there where you can fill out an inquiry form, and we can reach out to you. But thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us, and have a great weekend.